Welcome back to Movies Outpost. Today we'll be diving into the Sicario movies. This video will contain some spoilers ahead, and as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the recap. The movie begins with an elite FBI team preparing for a dangerous mission. Reports suggest a remote safe house in Chandler, Arizona, may be holding individuals trapped or held against their will. Leading the operation is FBI agent Kate Mazer. As the team storms the safe house, they find no sign of hostages. However, Agent Reggie notices a small hole in one of the walls that seems suspicious. Carefully, the team removes parts of the wall and uncovers a dark and horrifying secret: several bodies wrapped in plastic stacked inside a hidden compartment. Forensic experts are called in, and after further investigation, a total of 42 bodies are discovered within the walls. The team continues to search and finds a padlocked hatch, realizing the mission is far more dangerous than they imagined. Back at the FBI office, Kate and Reggie attend a critical meeting focused on capturing Manuel Diaz. The CIA, led by Matt Graver, joins the discussion to share information and plan their strategy. Recognizing Kate's skill and bravery, the team invites her to join the mission. Driven by the desire to avenge her fallen colleagues, Kate agrees. During the briefing, the team discusses Diaz's operation. While he runs legitimate businesses, he is rumored to have connections to a Mexican cartel. His brother Guillermo Diaz and cousin Fausto Alarcon are also identified as key figures in the operation. As the team prepares for their next move, Kate meets Matt, who will lead the mission. She learns that their objective is to dramatically overreact and bring down the cartel responsible for the events at the safe house. When asked if they'll have a chance to confront the men truly responsible, Kate confirms her resolve and volunteers without hesitation. In Nogales, Mexico, a man named Silvio lies on his bed, resting after what seems like a long night. His young son bursts into the room, excitedly reminding him about the upcoming soccer match. Silvio slowly gets up and joins his son at the breakfast table, sharing a quiet family moment. After eating, Silvio changes into his police uniform, preparing for the day ahead. Meanwhile, in the US, Reggie drives Kate to an airbase where she is set to join Matt Graver and his team. Kate steps out of the car, says goodbye to Reggie, and heads toward the plane, her mind racing with anticipation and unease. She knows the mission is high stakes and risky, but has been given few details about the plan or their destination. On board, Kate asks Matt about their destination. "We're going to El Paso, right?" she confirms. Matt responds casually, which does little to ease her nerves. The conversation shifts briefly to Matt's expertise with Mexican cartels, but the details remain vague. After landing, Kate and Matt arrive at a military base where an officer briefs a large group of soldiers about the mission. While the soldiers listen intently, Kate feels out of place, overwhelmed by the lack of information. Seeking clarity, she approaches Alejandro, hoping to understand more. Alejandro reveals that he used to be a prosecutor in Colombia, working with dangerous criminals. He advises Kate that she won't understand the mission at first, but assures her that things will become clearer over time. Kate listens intently, but Alejandro's cryptic explanation only deepens her confusion. When Matt later suggests she follow Alejandro's instructions without question, Kate pushes back, asserting that she's not authorized to take orders from him. Matt simply brushes it off, leaving Kate even more uncertain about what lies ahead. Kate, driven by her desire to make a difference, volunteered for this mission. Matt reminds her of this, asking, "Do you want to find the guys responsible, yes or no?" Kate, though shaken, firmly responds, "Yes." The team departs the army base and heads toward Mexico. As they drive, Kate sees a horrifying sight: several dead bodies hanging from poles, stripped of their clothing. The gruesome display leaves her visibly shaken. The team member explains that the bodies belong to drug dealers, displayed as a brutal warning and a testament to the cartel's merciless grip on the area. The team's objective is to capture Guillermo, the brother of Manuel Diaz, and a key figure in the cartel's operations. They locate him quickly, arresting him without resistance. Guillermo is handcuffed and placed into a car, the ease of the operation surprising Kate. As they begin their return to the US, the group remains on edge, knowing the hardest part is still ahead. The cartel won't let one of their leaders be taken without retaliation. As they approach the border, tension escalates. The team is on high alert, scanning for any threats. Suddenly, they spot cartel vehicles closing in. Alejandro orders everyone to prepare their weapons. Chaos erupts as the team confronts armed cartel members, neutralizing the threat with precise and decisive action. "Clear?" Alejandro shouts as the team regains control and crosses the border. Once safely across, Kate's frustration boils over. She confronts Matt as the other men enter the base, anger evident in her voice. She demands to know how he could authorize deadly force in Mexico, accusing him of leading a mission that seems increasingly lawless and out of control. Confused and upset, she tells him she no longer understands what's happening, nor the true purpose of the operation. Frustrated by Guillermo's silence, Matt calls in Alejandro. The moment Guillermo sees Alejandro, his demeanor shifts to nervousness. Alejandro, cold and calculating, applies intense pressure with his interrogation methods. His approach is harsh, but it works. Under this unrelenting pressure, Guillermo finally breaks, revealing the existence of a secret smuggling tunnel between the US and Mexico. Later, one of the officers takes Kate to a rooftop, pointing out the chaos in Mexico caused by Guillermo's arrest. Below, she sees the unrest spreading as cartel operations fall into disarray. Afterward, Kate enters a crowded detention facility filled with illegal immigrants from Mexico. The atmosphere is tense and heavy with fear. The team, unsure of the tunnel's exact location, has detained the immigrants in the hope that someone might know about the smuggling route. Reggie, frustrated and confused, confronts Matt. He demands answers, stating that if Matt doesn't explain the mission's objectives, both he and Kate will leave. Matt, unbothered, deflects the questions. "What are we looking for?" Reggie insists. "Just keep watching," Matt responds cryptically. Reggie pushes further, refusing to back down. "I want to know what we're doing here." "Why aren't you telling us everything?" Matt finally gives in, explaining that Guillermo revealed the existence of the tunnel located east of Nogales. He adds that Guillermo had no choice but to talk, and will now spend the next 30 years in an American prison. The conversation leaves Kate and Reggie uneasy, sensing the moral grayness of the mission they've been pulled into. The immigrant, though uncertain of the exact location, provides a rough estimate of the smuggling tunnel's whereabouts. With this lead, a team decides to raid the area and dismantle Manuel Diaz's drug operation. They also recognize the importance of capturing Fausto Alarcon, Diaz's boss, who remains in Mexico. Knowing this is critical to their mission, the team devises a plan to track and intercept Alarcon. Matt and his team focus on monitoring a bank used by the cartel. They watch for a woman known to deposit black money for the Mexican drug mafia. After hours of tense observation, the woman appears. As she attempts to make another deposit, the team swiftly arrests her and confiscates her bag filled with cash, hoping the evidence will lead them closer to Diaz and his operations. "Don't go into the bank," Matt warns Kate. "This is something we can actually build a case on." He explains that all the cash deposits made in $9,000 increments to avoid detection are connected to Diaz's accounts. "This money is invisible," he adds, revealing they've just seized $17 million. Kate, feeling the weight of the situation, informs her superior about the large cash deposits linked to Diaz. She insists this evidence should be enough to make a legal arrest. However, her superior explains calmly that large deposits alone are not illegal. Without clear proof tying the money to criminal activity, they don't have a strong enough case. Frustrated and overwhelmed, Reggie suggests they stop at a nearby bar to relax and decompress after the intense day. The group agrees, eager for a moment of reprieve from the mounting tension. Kate tries to unwind at the bar, even sharing a dance with Ted. The music is loud, and for a brief moment she allows herself to escape the mission's stress. However, as the night progresses, she notices something unsettling. Her eyes catch a glimpse of a pink and blue band on Ted's wrist. Her heart races as she realizes that Ted might be connected to the cartel. Confronting him, Kate accuses him of betraying her. "You used me as bait," she exclaims, furious. Matt intervenes, trying to calm her down. "This is good news," he insists, but Kate feels betrayed and demands answers. "How many others are corrupt on this side of the border?" she presses, her voice filled with frustration and anger. Meanwhile, Alejandro steps in to kidnap Ted and negotiate with him, applying his usual pressure. "I'm the one who decides if your family gets federal protection." Reluctantly, Ted begins revealing the names of officers working with the cartel. Despite the tense situation, Alejandro tells Kate that she reminds him of someone, though he doesn't explain further, leaving the comment hanging for later. Later, Kate and Reggie meet Matt, where a large group of soldiers is gathered. They focus on a satellite image showing the location of Manuel Diaz and the smuggling tunnel. The team uses the satellite to monitor his movements, strategizing their approach. Matt outlines the plan to infiltrate the tunnel secretly, but Kate feels unsettled. She struggles to understand why the mission is so focused on the tunnel instead of directly arresting Diaz, her confusion and frustration growing as events unfold. Kate directly questions the team's priorities, wondering why they are so focused on taking down the tunnel when Manuel Diaz is clearly the bigger target. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Silvio is seen in his police car, receiving several suspicious packets, further evidence of his connection to the cartel's operations. Later that night, Matt and his team infiltrate the secret tunnel, with Alejandro and the Delta Force leading the way. Chaos erupts as they encounter a large group of cartel gunmen. A fierce battle ensues with gunfire and explosions filling the air. Kate and Reggie, nervous and tense, keep their distance, watching the situation unfold. During the commotion, Kate notices something strange. Alejandro, who had been with their group, suddenly veers off in a different direction. Unsure of his intentions, Kate decides to follow him. As events escalate, Kate is caught in a dangerous situation but survives thanks to her bulletproof vest. Emerging from the tunnel injured and furious, she confronts Matt, demanding answers. Reggie, unable to find her earlier, also presses Matt for the truth. Matt finally reveals the mission's real purpose. Alejandro, as it turns out, is not an FBI agent, but a Colombian assassin hired to eliminate Manuel Diaz and his boss Fausto Alarcon. Matt admits that this operation was never about law enforcement but a revenge-driven plan. Alejandro, a former prosecutor from Medellin, had lost everything to the cartel. His personal vendetta against Diaz and Alarcon is the true motivation behind the mission. As the shocking truth sinks in, Kate realizes just how far removed this mission is from the law and justice she thought she was serving. When the cartel rose to power, they killed Alejandro's wife and daughter in a horrific act of cruelty, which I cannot even say how from the brutality. Alejandro's involvement in the mission is deeply personal, fueled by the unbearable loss and his desire for revenge. Kate, horrified and furious upon learning the truth, confronts Matt, vowing to expose their illegal activities. She feels betrayed, realizing she has unknowingly been a part of something that goes against everything she stands for. Matt, unfazed, defunds the mission, insisting that such brutality is necessary in dealing with the cartel. Meanwhile, Alejandro closes in on his ultimate target, Fausto Alarcon. In a chilling encounter, Alejandro methodically eliminates Fausto's men and confronts him whilst he eats dinner with his family. In a cold-hearted manner, Alejandro reminds him of all the sins and suffering he made him feel. Fausto begs Alejandro to let his family go but is ignored, and Alejandro kills them all, completing his long-planned mission of vengeance. The brutal culmination of his journey leaves no doubt about his resolve and the depth of his grief. Afterward, Alejandro visits Kate at her apartment. He brings a document, demanding her signature to affirm that the mission was conducted legally. When Kate refuses, Alejandro draws his gun, making it clear she has no choice. Overcome with emotion, Kate breaks down in tears and reluctantly signs the paper. Before leaving, Alejandro softens briefly, telling her she reminds him of his daughter and suggests she move to a quiet town. As he turns to leave, Kate raises her gun, pointing it at him. Alejandro stops, calmly waiting for her to make her decision. After a tense moment, Kate slowly lowers her weapon, choosing to let him go. Alejandro walks away, leaving her to grapple with the moral weight of what she has experienced. Sicario 2. Soldado opens at the Mexico-Texas border under the cover of night, where a spotlight pierces through the darkness, revealing a large group of people sprinting across the arid terrain. The intention is clear: they're attempting to cross the border illegally, desperate to reach the United States unnoticed. As the scene unfolds, law enforcement vehicles arrive in quick succession, surrounding the area with flashing lights and sirens. Officers move swiftly, cutting off all possible escape routes. Amid the chaos, one man takes a chance, breaking away from the group and sprinting into the night, hoping to evade capture. Meanwhile, in Kansas City, a seemingly ordinary day at a bustling department store takes a horrifying turn. Out of nowhere, a group of armed terrorists storms into the store, carrying deadly explosives. As the dust settles, the scale of the tragedy becomes apparent. News of the attack spreads like wildfire, igniting widespread panic and fear across the country. The U.S. president, visibly shaken, addresses the nation in a solemn press conference, revealing that these terrorist operatives are not only active within the United States, but are being smuggled across the southern border under the cover of darkness. In a swift response, a U.S. Special Forces team is deployed to a remote base in Somalia, believed to be a hub for a notorious smuggling network, aiding terrorist infiltration. Under the cover of night, the elite unit moves in with precision, surrounding the compound. With weapons drawn, they breach the hideout and apprehend their primary target, Bashir, a suspected mastermind behind the smuggling routes used to transport terrorists into the United States. The operation is a significant breakthrough in the ongoing fight against the threat, but it also highlights the growing complexity of the global network fueling these devastating attacks. Meanwhile, Matt, seated across from Bashir, casually bites into a Snickers bar. Breaking the silence, he asks if Bashir is thirsty. He instead glances at the nearby water jugs, then smirks at Matt, sarcastically remarking that Americans need to come up with new tricks. Unfazed, Matt calmly explains that while waterboarding might work for some, things are handled differently in Africa. With a cold tone, he warns Bashir if he doesn't comply, he'll call an airstrike on his house. His prisoner chuckles, dismissing the threat and claiming the terrorists aren't his men. So Matt has just one question: who paid Bashir to let the ships through? After blowing up Bashir's house, he eventually shows him a screen of his brother and wants answers immediately. Meanwhile, near the Mexico border, a young boy named Miguel sits with his friend Hector. Hector, an informant for a local drug cartel, speaks in a low, persuasive tone, showing Miguel stacks of cash. Join the cartel, he urges, and you can start earning like this. You can buy anything you want, make life better for your family. The temptation proves too strong. After a brief hesitation, Miguel nods, agreeing to join the cartel. Back in Washington, D.C., Matt attends a high-stakes meeting with CIA Director Cynthia and Secretary of Defense James Riley. The agenda is clear and urgent: dismantling the powerful cartels. Cynthia outlines the mission's strategy, explaining their goal of turning the Matamoros cartel against its rival. Riley emphasizes the broader objectives, aiming to weaken the cartel's influence while cutting off their connection to smuggling routes. The team shifts focus to their next mission, targeting the organization led by Carlos Reyes. Their strategy is bold and risky: create internal conflict between the rival cartels, hoping they'll destroy each other. Without hesitation, the deal is approved. Matt then travels to Colombia to meet Alejandro, who has been living peacefully there. Matt appeals to Alejandro's hatred of the cartels, reminding him that they were responsible for the death of his family. Alejandro agrees to join the mission, taking it as a personal vendetta. Arriving in Mexico City with his team, Alejandro wastes no time initiating their plan. They intercept a car, and when one of the men inside panics and tries to flee, Alejandro eliminates him with precision. The man turns out to be a prominent lawyer for the Matamoros cartel. Alejandro's actions send shockwaves through the criminal underworld, sparking immediate tension and conflict between the two rival cartels, just as he and Matt intended. As the cartels are thrown into chaos, Alejandro and his team execute the next phase, kidnapping Isabel. After school, Isabel is escorted by her bodyguard Carson, who picks her up in a black SUV. Seated in the back, Isabel is engrossed in her iPad while Carson maintains a watchful eye on the road. His vigilance pays off when he notices another SUV trailing them. The road ahead becomes steep and Carson instructs the driver to speed up, but the pursuing vehicle keeps pace. Realizing the threat, Carson radios ahead, warning the bodyguard to notify Carlos Reyes that attacking the Matamoros cartel could have catastrophic consequences. As tension builds, Matt and Alejandro brace for the fallout, knowing their dangerous game of manipulation is only beginning. Alejandro's goal is clear: ignite a brutal rivalry between the Matamoros cartel and Carlos Reyes' organization, pushing the two into direct conflict. So far, his plan is unfolding perfectly, with tensions between the cartels escalating. Meanwhile, Matt successfully carries out a staged rescue operation, bringing Isabel to a secure location. The next step in the operation is to return her to Mexico, ensuring that the chaos between the cartels intensifies. Meanwhile, Matt and his men watch the live feed of the chaos they created, watching their plan unfold as they see multiple men on screen confused at what's happening. Back at the house, Alejandro begins speaking with Isabel and tries to make her feel at ease even though she is scared out of her mind. They untie her face, but out of nowhere, a group of their men arrive and breach the house, making it out to be a rescue mission. Isabel listens scared, but Alejandro barges in and finds her making their plan work to perfection. They escort her out into the vehicle and begin driving with Isabel, who is clearly shaken up by the incident. Alejandro takes her to a secure location and begins questioning Isabel, projecting himself as her savior, telling her they're going to get her home safely. In the meantime, Matt and Alejandro meet with a man, preparing an escape route after their plan succeeds. The man comforts Matt, telling him the federal police will be there and have their support. After this meeting, they bump into Miguel, who then gets back into the car with his friend who has convinced him to join the cartel. As the team crosses the border back into Mexico, everything seems to be going as planned, until an unexpected twist changes everything. At a checkpoint, Mexican police, who were supposed to be unaware of the mission, suddenly turn on the team. Without warning, the police open fire, forcing Matt and his men to respond with equal intensity. "Take them out," Matt shouts as the team reacts quickly to neutralize the threat. After the dust settles, the team regroups, shaken but alive. Alejandro, however, feels personally responsible for Isabel's safety. He decides to go after her alone, knowing the risks involved. With the operation spiraling out of control, he is determined to track her down before the cartel can get to her. He understands the grave danger she faces if captured. Meanwhile, Matt returns to the US, where Cynthia meets him with urgent news. She informs him that the Mexican government is now aware of their covert mission and demands they shut it down immediately to avoid further diplomatic complications. With tensions rising and international relations at stake, Matt faces the difficult decision of whether to continue or abandon the operation entirely. Cynthia firmly emphasizes that the operation must be shut down immediately. She insists that continuing it would not only risk further destabilization in Mexico but could also lead to severe consequences for the US government. Her stance is clear. The mission's original objective was to incite a war with the Mexican cartels, not to provoke conflict with the Mexican government. However, Matt, deeply committed to the mission and the broader plan he has meticulously set in motion, refuses to back down despite the mounting risks. As they continue their dangerous journey, Alejandro and Isabel encounter a deaf man named Angel. Alejandro, using sign language to communicate, explains their desperate need for food and water. He shares a poignant detail about himself. He learned sign language from his daughter, who tragically is no longer alive. This moment of connection reveals a softer side of Alejandro. Later that night, Isabel begins to unravel the truth about Alejandro. She recalls fragmented memories and suddenly pieces together a shocking realization. Alejandro is the same lawyer whose family was brutally murdered under the orders of her father, carried out by Fausto Alarcon. This revelation adds a new layer of tension and complexity to their already fraught dynamic. Meanwhile, Matt makes a chilling phone call to Alejandro telling him to kill Isabel and finish the mission. Despite his ruthless directive, Alejandro sees Isabel in a different light, not just as a tool in his quest for revenge, but also as an innocent caught in a cycle of violence she did not choose. Refusing to follow Matt's orders, Alejandro takes a different approach. Instead of killing Isabel, he secretly places a small discreet transmitter in her shoe. This device will allow him to track her location if they are ever separated or if she attempts to run. Alejandro decides to guide Isabel safely across the border, determined to protect her from the deadly forces pursuing them. To ensure her safety and avoid detection, he devises a plan to conceal her identity, knowing the danger they face is far from over. To help Isabel blend in, Alejandro changes her appearance and boards a bus crowded with Mexican migrants heading toward the border. Isabel is surprised by the sheer number of people being loaded into vehicles, each group bound for different parts of the border. Alejandro explains that this happens every day, with many risking everything for the chance at a better life. As they travel, a signal is sent out alerting the cartel to their possible location. Alejandro insists on handling the situation personally, knowing the danger they face. Soon, a cartel member named Hector approaches them. Alejandro tells Isabel to stay calm, avoid eye contact, and answer only with yes or no in a quiet voice. When Hector grows suspicious, Alejandro offers him a large sum of money, $115,000, to buy their safety. Hector hesitates but eventually takes the cash, allowing them to stay on the bus. Sitting among the other passengers, Alejandro and Isabel try to remain inconspicuous, hoping to make it to safety without incident. But their luck runs out when a young boy on the bus recognizes Isabel. He alerts his leader, a ruthless gang boss who sees her as a valuable bargaining chip. Believing that Carlos Reyes will pay a hefty ransom for her return, the gang leader orders the boy to kill Alejandro, viewing him as an obstacle to their plan. The situation takes a dangerous turn, threatening their chance of escape. Miguel, now deeply entangled with the cartel and its ruthless operations, is handed a chilling assignment. He must kill Alejandro. Reluctantly, he carries out the order, but the weight of his actions begins to cause some distress. Matt then asks what happened to the girl as he covertly monitors the unfolding events from a distance, prepare to intervene. From their vantage point, Matt and Steve watch as the gangsters gather around Miguel, applauding his successful execution of the task. However, Miguel, visibly shaken by the brutality and questioning his loyalty to this violent path, chooses not to remain with them. His hesitation creates a critical opening. Matt and Steve seize the moment, launching a surprise assault on the gangsters. In a swift and deadly move, they eliminate the entire group before anyone has the chance to react. Isabel asks what they are doing, and she is told she will now go into witness protection. Meanwhile, Alejandro, who miraculously survived the attack but is gravely injured, manages to break free. Staggering to the van where the cartel had stored their weapons, he climbs inside. As he attempts to escape, two cartel members spot him. Without hesitation, they open fire, forcing Alejandro to make a desperate move to survive. 1 year later, Miguel has left his criminal past behind and now works quietly at a food court in a shopping mall. Life seems mundane but safe until a familiar face from his past walks in. Alejandro, alive and more resilient than ever, approaches him. Recognizing the conflicted young man, Alejandro offers Miguel a new path. He decides to take him under his wing, introducing him to the life of a sicario, a hitman with a purpose. Thanks for staying until the end. A like and comment goes a long way, and as always, stay awesome and take care.